No intro today, people. No wonderful words for Brazil. No wonderful words for Argentina. Shout out to Venezuela for getting a victory. Paraguay are still amazing. And shout out to the astronauts of Bolivia getting a point against Uruguay. People, this is somewhat of an emergency. We saw a humiliation. We saw a murder in Buenos Aires. I don't know what the FBI equivalent is in Argentina, but they need to report a murder at the Estadio Monumental. 4-1. 4-1, people. We saw last night. Argentina, Brazil. We'll get to the other teams. Don't worry about it, people. Get your thoughts in the comments down below. Are Brazil now really finished? We're getting to that point now that this is a humiliating defeat on top of all the average performances we and Rank have talked about. We have talked about this numerous times in these CONMEBOL previews and reviews that Brazil, they're squeaking by these games. But it all came crashing down last night. And of course, we're joined by Rank. His channel is in the description down below. You can check out his watch-along highlights where at the perfect time, Simeone scores the fourth goal, and then his battery went kaput. And maybe it was the same thing for Brazil's World Cup qualifying campaign because it's going kaput right now. So let's get into it. 4-1, Estadio Monumental. Rank, Argentina is the first team to win both matches against Brazil in the entire history of eliminatorias. In the entire history of qualifying, no team has ever won both games against Brazil. Ever. Brazil had not conceded 4+ goals in a competitive game since obviously the 7-1 against Germany. But if you're talking about South American opponents, you have to go way back to 1987. 1987, people. That's almost when Venezuela joined CONMEBOL. That just signifies the historic defeat and the historic victory that we witnessed last night. And I don't know. There's so many ways we can go about it. First, we're going to react to the game, people. Then we're going to talk about Argentina qualifying to the World Cup, and we'll talk about Brazil and what the hell's left of them should Dorival be manager. Rank, how do you describe in just one word what you saw last night?
Sex.
With lube or no lube?
No. There was nothing. I don't think what we saw last night should have been broadcasted on live TV.
So it's only OnlyFans content. OnlyFans.
That had no right being on live TV. Listen, you were saying about that achievement of being the first team to ever beat Brazil in both qualifier games. You can pin that on this Brazil team being incredibly average and how awful they are. But the reality of the situation is that the only team that went away to Brazil and beat them was Argentina. And so I think that this actually speaks more volumes about how amazing and how historic this Argentina national team is, that at this point, I think that we have to say that it's probably the best Argentina national team that we've ever seen in history, better than 78, better than 86, just on the sheer volume of accomplishments that it has managed to get and the consistency that it has provided throughout these years under Lionel Scaloni, who is just the genius behind this mastermind of a team. It was a fantastic game. It was historic for many reasons. It was the first time that we defeated Brazil by 3 goals in like 60 years or something. And obviously that means that for me, it was the first time that I saw Argentina actually beat Brazil in this type of fashion. And it's just incredible. It's just incredible. And even with Argentina being this good for so long, we have to acknowledge that this is not normal. That a team can be this good, so consistent for so long. It's something that I want to enjoy for as long as possible because we don't know how long it's going to last. But the future is looking bright as well because we saw the youngsters coming in. We saw that without Messi, we could do this. We did this without Messi. I think that...
Or Lautaro.
Without Lautaro, without Messi. With Messi, I think that this is even more of a beat down. But the fact that we could do this with the players like Thiago Almada, like Giuliano Simeone coming off the bench, Nico Passo, a few minutes, he didn't have an impact into the game, but just shows that there are more and more players that are going to come through for Argentina in the future, and that it's going to keep working. And on the opposite end, like Brazil, they have hit rock bottom, because before there were the average performances, but now it's just a humiliation. The only saving grace was that mistake by Cuti Romero that was able to get them the goal. But they didn't create anything in the game. For the entirety of the 90 minutes, it was a beatdown, and they created absolutely nothing. There was no fighting spirit. There was no creativity. The midfield was horrendous again. And obviously, it comes down to Dorival. but it comes down to the players too. And I think that the talent pool and the whole structure of Brazilian football needs to have a massive rehaul if they're going to turn this situation around, because as it stands, they are nowhere near close to that 6th star of the World Cup.
There's so many ways to break down this game, because you can look at Argentina, and for me, being on this planet now for almost 30 years, people, that might be the best performance I've ever seen from Argentina. It might be. Obviously, there's that World Cup performance against Serbia, Montenegro, but I mean, Serbia, Montenegro, and that World Cup were not good. You could talk about the Croatia semifinal game, World Cup 2022. I thought Argentina were perfect, but this wasn't. I mean, for all the chatting, Rafinha and the Brazilian players were talking, I thought, okay, good. Rank, I'm okay with shit talking. You gotta boost yourself up if you're a Brazilian player or any footballer. This is what more footballers should do. You gotta have some talk about it, but you gotta back it up. And they didn't even show up. I didn't know Rafinha played. I didn't even know Vinny played. Shout out to Matheus Cunha, got the goal. Obviously now warrants probably more starts because he's taken his opportunity compared to other players that Brazil have tried up front. But I thought Argentina were amazing. For me, that is the best game I've seen from Enzo. I thought Enzo Fernandez was unbelievable. He was everywhere on the field, the technical ability, the pass he played into McAllister for the goal. Are you kidding me? It's just insanity what Argentina were doing. People, just go back and watch the second goal. I put it on Twitter. I just put football, period. The goal was just... every player touched the ball. I think it was like 30 passes, 40 passes. One of the best goals I've seen. And obviously, Argentina scored the ridiculous second goal with Di Maria in the World Cup final. I mean, this one is up there for the beautiful combination play and awareness. And it's just Argentinian football at its finest right there with that second goal. So I think Argentina were amazing. I mean, you have Dorival doing kick-ups at 4-1 up. I'm like, this is now getting ridiculous. This is getting sad.
Scaloni was getting mad about it as well.
Look, fair play to Scaloni, but hey, you know what? Good thing Dorival did that, because it really, I think it now stings more to the Brazilian players. So Argentina, every player was amazing. I thought Almada with his pace and dribbling is so amazing. Alvarez with his off-ball movement, his pressing, and they allowed Brazil nothing in the game, people. Nothing. Ender came out there and looked like a kid getting bullied at school. And they took his lunch money, took his milk, and probably took his condoms as well during that time, because Hendrik was poor. So let's jump straight to Brazil. Rank, where did it go wrong? Is it obviously we've talked about many times. Dorival is a bum. This guy should not be manager of this national team. And it's just crazy to me that Brazilian clubs have dominated Copa Libertadores. Dominated. But if you look at majority of those managers, where are they from? Portugal. They're not even Brazilian. That's the only time is Fernando Diniz and one other manager, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember who the other manager was. But those are the only time when Brazil have won the Copa Libertadores 6 years in a row. You're like, okay, it's a Brazilian manager. They tried Diniz. It didn't work out. I don't think it was the right thing to do, because he's balancing Fluminense and the Seleção at the same time. It was never going to work out. Dorival should be immediately sacked after this. If he recovers from this, hey man, Edonado and him are sleeping in the same bed. They're sleeping in the same bed, because there's no way you can survive this as a manager. Okay, if Dorival gets sacked, and obviously me and Rank will do a video together if he does get sacked and talking about possible replacements, there is no other choice but to go for a foreign manager. There's no other choice. You have to now go for a foreign manager and just say, we need something different to this national team. We've tried the Brazilians. We tried the sort of hipster one in Diniz. We tried the old guard in Dorival. That hasn't worked out. So go for a foreign manager. Get an Argentinian. Fuck it. Get an Argentinian and see if it works out. But Frank, at this point, everybody in South America has an Argentinian manager.
I think that would be the best, but you know what it means to Brazilian football that an Argentinian is coaching them?
Oh, it would probably be the most humiliating thing possible. After 7-1, of course. That was the most. So I think Dorival got that game completely wrong. The midfield, I mean, Joe Linton starting for the Seleção. Zé Roberto and these guys are just probably looking at like, what is this guy doing out there? This guy looks like a bulldozer. Joe Linton couldn't do anything in that game. He couldn't be physical. He couldn't get on the ball. His passing was terrible. And I feel bad for Andre. I think Andre is a decent player, but he was just a fish out of water in that scenario. And the two fullbacks, I mean, they got cooked. and cooked, sliced, diced. It was a Brazilian barbecue on those guys. And yeah, look, I know people want to single out the Rafinha and the Vini and saying they were poor. They didn't even get the ball. They didn't even get the ball. And anytime Vini got the ball out wide, it was like against 3 defenders. And he beat them once. And after that, he couldn't do anything. I didn't even know Rodrigo played. So do you blame Dorival completely for this game? I think this is completely on Dorival, in my opinion.
I think that most of the blame has to be on Dorival, because only when I looked at the lineup and I saw that basically Brazil was playing 4-4, because Joelinton and Andre were the only midfielders, and then you had Rodrigo, Rafinha, Vini, and Mateus Cunha up front. And I looked at the lineup for Argentina with that 4-4-2, and I was like, this game is over. Like, how are they going to do? Because not only are you outnumbered, you're also outclassed in the midfield. Argentina have McAllister, Enzo, Paredes, and Thiago Almada over there, and the Paul. So you could have like potentially 5 midfielders, 4 if you put Almada more forward, against Joelinton and Andre alone. And they couldn't win the midfield battle. It was impossible. So they couldn't progress past the halfway line towards their forwards. And Argentina's pressing was just so intense that they couldn't do anything about it. And obviously our build-up play was super superior as well to what Brazil was doing. Their defense was awful. Obviously,
Murilo had a shocker, by the way.
No. It was horrible. But it's kind of hard as well, because you have to look at the squad selection, and really Brazil seemed to have nothing. Because who was missing from this Brazil team that you thought could have maybe changed the outcome of this game?
Andre Santos. That's it.
The Santos, okay. Neymar is a good one, but then you have to take someone else from the attack. You still need somebody there in the midfield, because if Rafinha isn't getting the ball, or if Neymar isn't getting the ball, it's like having the same player, basically. And I think that the fact that Argentina just managed to control the midfield, and that Dorival allowed that, but basically playing no midfield, because playing only Andre and Joelinton basically out of position, because I don't think he works in a double pivot. He has to play a bit more forward. It's just horrible. So I think that definitely this is a sackable offense for Dorival. There is no coming back from this. I thought that he should have get sacked after the Copa America, because of the way that he basically lost the dressing room in that penalty shootout against Uruguay. But even then, he survived up until now, and Brazil have a bit over a year to start over and start thinking about 2026, because obviously they are going to still qualify to the World Cup, but they need to do something there. They cannot just fizzle out and lose like in the round of 16 or quarterfinals again, because it could very well happen for a Brazil team in this level. And yeah, they need to start over. And like you were saying, they probably need to go for a foreign manager as well. The problem is that I don't think that anybody's can bail them out as a foreign manager, because you're basically getting yourself into hot water. So which manager would even be brave enough to come and take this Brazil team and try to take them to glory in the form that they're in, seeing the players that are available to you? It's just so difficult. I feel like mainly the federation needs to change, the whole structure needs to change, and then you need to build on a project. You have to be patient about it. I know it's hard to be patient because you're Brazil, but you have to start building from somewhere with the youngsters and with a manager that you can trust long term, because in this way, with the old guard, it's not going to work. It's going to keep sinking down. This was rock bottom. It's going to keep digging down if they don't do something about it.
No, and Rank, we've watched all the qualifying games. They've been squeaking by results. Like the game against Ecuador at home, they won 1-0. Nobody can tell me that was a good performance from Brazil. Of course, They did well against Colombia. I thought that was actually a very entertaining game, and obviously Vinny came up clutch in that matchup. But again, they were squeaking by. They needed a 98th minute winner, and they won the game. So Brazil have just been average, and they're just squeaking by the results. This is not sustainable. It isn't. I tried to look. So I did the history. When it was 2001 and they were struggling in those World Cup qualifiers as well, they sacked their manager, and in came in Luis Scolari. And obviously a year later, they won the World Cup. They're going to have to do the same thing here. But this time, it's going to be a foreign manager. They have to just swallow the hardship that they're not good enough. There is no Brazil. Right? Is there any Brazilian manager in Europe?
Nope. Not that I know.
Okay. I don't know either. I honestly think, and I don't know, Brazilians, you let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I think they should go for Jorge Jesus.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Clearly he's worked out. Portuguese managers are doing very well in the Brazilian league. Go with him. Go with him. Try it out. Arthur George won with Botafogo. Obviously, Abel Ferreira has won all the Copa Libertadores, all the titles with Palmeiras. Obviously, Jorge Jesus won with Flamengo. So clearly a Portuguese manager has some sort of tactical nuance for international football and understands Brazilian football to the sense that you also have to have that individual ability about yourself. I just think there's so many problems, and the midfield is so garbage. It's just so they cannot. The attack is good. I think the center backs are decent. The full backs are okay, but it's the midfield, and it's always going to be in international football for me. You have to have a good midfield. That's why France won the World Cup in 2018. That's why Germany won the World Cup in 2014. That's why Argentina won the last World Cup. Is because they have the best midfield at the tournament and they work as a cohesive unit. What midfield? Ecuador have a better midfield. Paraguay have a better midfield. Colombia, we'll talk about them in a second. Uruguay on paper have a better midfield. Better. It's not looking good. I mean, even Morocco have a better midfield than Brazil. Morocco. Japan. I can give you more names, people. Yeah, okay, Michael. They play in the Premier League. Why does that matter? Why? Show that you deserve to play in the Premier League. Enzo showed it yesterday. McAllister showed it yesterday. So that was probably the most humiliating defeat for Brazil since 7-1.
Yes.
Easily for me. Easily. I know they lost in the World Cups, but those are penalty exits or against Belgium 2-1. At least they were the better team in those games, I could say. Yesterday, nothing. I thought I was watching Argentina against Bolivia, but Bolivia wore yellow shirts. That's what I thought I was watching. And yeah, Bolivia just got that one lucky chance and they scored. It was the same exact thing here. So there are so many issues for Brazil. I hope now that this is a huge wake-up call. Either it's going to change now with the manager Dorival leaving, or they're just going to keep on sinking and sinking and sinking. And when they get to that World Cup, it'll be around a 16 exit. As of right now, it will be like Argentina in the 2018 World Cup. It will be around a 16 exit. You will see it, people, because they cannot sustain this one bit. They might have the names. They got the flashy. They're like a Supreme, a Louis Vuitton, but the quality is ass. The quality is ass. Quickly before we move on to the other teams, Argentina qualified for the World Cup, obviously, again. And now they will attempt to do the unthinkable, which is a Copa America, a World Cup, Finalissima, a Copa America. Rank, what do you want to see from your team for the next year ahead of the World Cup? Do you want to just see more of the young players integrated into this team? Is that the number one thing for you?
Yes, I think that it's important that the young players are actually integrated into the team, because we saw at the last World Cup, Enzo Fernandez hadn't played a qualifier game. And then he got randomly into the squad by playing friendlies ahead of the World Cup. And he ended up being one of the key pieces to win us the World Cup. Julian Alvarez wasn't really considered to be a starter because Lautaro was so good for the Copa America and for the qualifiers that he was the number 9 going into Qatar. But Julian Alvarez was there. He got some good performances. He got into the squad. And when it was his time to shine, he showed it at the World Cup as well. So I think that it's important that Argentina now focus on the players that are on the best form and give them minutes with the national team, give them time in the training grounds with the other players that have already won everything. And yeah, just foster them and give them that ability to recognize each other, build that connection that is just so important to this Argentina national team, the connections, the relations between the players. And potentially, these young players that have not had many minutes for the national team, the Nico Paz, the Perrone, the Juliano Simeone, Benja Dominguez, Santi Castro, all of these young players could potentially be game changers at the World Cup coming off the bench. Or if someone of the starters is like either injured or in bad form, they can even potentially switch into being starters for the World Cup and be difference makers. So I think that it's very important that we qualified early and that now we can play these last few games more relaxed and give those minutes to the young players and test them out against strong opposition that is the other teams in CONMEBOL before going into the World Cup, which, yeah, it's going to be very, very important.
Then the question will be, are Argentina going to go back-to-back at this World Cup? You're out. I look at the other teams around the world. I think it's just number 1 and 2 is Argentina and Spain. That's why we need to see this Finalissima game very soon, because that game, that is going to be football at its finest, because both teams are so technically gifted. Both teams have very good midfields. I think Argentina right now are the favorites for me. I have them ahead of Spain. As of right now, we still got 16, 15 months to go, people. So relax, but Argentina are still the best team in the world. They have the best international football manager by far. It is Scaloni number one, Nagelsmann number two. You could put Luis de la Fuente number three, and other managers out there. You could probably put in Thomas Tuchel, other guys. So I think Argentina have all the pieces. It's just about, keep playing the same way. Keep rotating the team, keeping it fresh, knowing that nobody has a guaranteed spot in this team. I think there's guaranteed spots probably for the midfield, the two center backs, Tagliafico. I feel like Argentina can just upgrade in the right back position. That's the only one where I'm like, that's where maybe could be a liability for Argentina. Otherwise, I'm like, I think you guys are going to go back-to-back, rank. I really do. I said last time you guys were going to win the World Cup. I'm starting to feel that way, but it's still a year out. So let's see how informed the players are. Are you confident in going back-to-back?
I mean, confident in going back-to-back is crazy because winning one World Cup is insanely difficult. Winning back-to-back World Cups, there's a reason why the last team who did it was Brazil's Pelé. So it's extremely difficult to go back-to-back. International football, it's so close nowadays that anybody on their day can beat you. And so you have to be on your perfect game now for 8 games because the World Cup has expanded. You have to be on your A game for 8 games in a row. And so I think that going back-to-back is going to be extremely difficult, but I agree that right now we are the best team in the world and that we are the number one favorite. That doesn't mean automatically that you're going to go back-to-back. I think that Spain are a fantastic team. Germany have been improving at an outstandingly good pace, and I think that they actually have a great team as well. France are still France, so I wouldn't rule them out either. So I think that there are definitely many dangerous teams. Obviously, England has a lot of talent. I'm not saying that England can win the World Cup, but on their day, they can potentially beat Argentina if they have like a great game and we have a bad game. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of someone else winning it. But as it stands, I do think that we are the best team and that we are the favorites. We'll have to see what happens because if we go back-to-back, it's already the greatest national team in history of football. It wouldn't be even close.
It wouldn't be. That would be legacy defining. And Rank, you can retire from football, buddy. You don't have to work in football anymore. Rank, there's no point.
No.
You've seen everything. You've seen the greatest dynasty possible in football. Like getting 5 trophies in what? 6 years? 5 massive trophies in 6 years. Like, that's insanity for
I can
Argentinians.
focus solely on Boca and La Septima. That's like...
well, you're going to have to be waiting a long time for that if you're a Boca fan. I'm going to ask you a question. Who do you think will be a breakthrough star for you for this Argentinian team next year? Because obviously you talked about Julian being that breakthrough star. Enzo. I think for me, the breakthrough star next year will be Nico Paz. I think this guy is going to be unbelievable. I feel like he needs to stay maybe one more season at Como just to get game time and keep going with the same rotation. But I'm looking at Nico Paz. I'm like, you could be a huge difference maker off the bench. Let's say, Messi picks up an injury or McAllister's not working on that day or Enzo's not working on that day. You bring on quality like Nico Paz, you ain't missing much. With the way he's playing for Como, his chance creation, his ability to find a goal, I love Nico Paz a lot. I think he could be a breakthrough star. Do you kind of agree with that, or would you say somebody else?
I agree with Nico Paz. I think that he's probably the number one that I'm looking at, considering the amount of minutes that he's getting, because clearly he is one that Scaloni really likes because he keeps calling him up every single time and giving him minutes whenever he can. And so I think that Nico Paz is probably the number one option. If I had to pick somebody else, I think that Perrone is another great player that is also playing at Jocomo that could see some playing time. Benja Dominguez, I think he's a bowler. Like what I saw from him, what little I saw from him, I think Benja Dominguez could be someone of a difference maker. And someone that we didn't even see in this camp, Matias Soule. I think that is another player that can potentially, if he continues in good form and actually gets call-ups and gets minutes for the national team, it's another player that can potentially come on and be a difference maker at the World Cup.
Is there anybody that can take that right back position that maybe we don't know about?
It's a difficult one because I feel like Scaloni really likes playing with Molina because Tagliafico is kind of like the more defensive left back. And so he doesn't really give you much going forward, but he's just so solid at the back that you know that nobody's going to get past him. And that's what I like so much about Tagliafico. But then you kind of need some width on the other side of the pitch. And I think that Molina just pushing forward. Yes, he doesn't always have the best crosses, and yes, he sometimes gets beat defensively. But whenever it does work, like we saw in that second goal where he gets the assist for Enzo Fernandez, I think that Molina does bring a lot to the national team in those situations. Because the next option, what is it? We saw that Boyd got called up, but he didn't even get minutes.
And he's more of a defensive right back as well compared to Molina.
More of a defensive right back, so like that wouldn't sit well with what Scaloni is going for.
Is there anybody in the Argentinian league, like a young star kind of emerging?
No, I wouldn't say so, because I think that Julio Soler, who came out of Lanús and went over to Bournemouth, now he's a left back. So like on the right side, I don't think there's anybody that's convincing that can actually challenge Molina. If anything, we saw that Montiel still got called up and he's playing at River Plate. So like, I think that the options for right back are limited, and you're right, and that's probably the one position that I would like to operate and that could be a liability. For now, I think that Molina has been working just fine, and if he continues performing like this, we should be okay. If the rest of the team obviously supports around him and the midfield contributes and the center backs help him defend, I think that we should be okay. But yeah, it would be the one position that I would like to upgrade to.
And then the final question, with talking about the World Cup, is Messi going to be there?
I hope so. I hope so, because I want to be there and I want to see Messi getting one last hurrah. The last hurrah at Qatar would have been amazing, but he keeps going. He's a competitive animal, and he's going to keep going. And he's still our best creative player going forward. And so I think that he still can give a lot to the national team. I don't know if at the World Cup he's going to play all 90 minutes every game. I don't think that would be sustainable with the way that he's playing right now for Inter Miami. But I think that he can definitely be the starter and then take it easy on the other games. We saw that Thiago Almada is an amazing replacement when it comes to creativity. So I wouldn't be worried about Messi getting subbed out after like 70 minutes or something. But I want to see Messi there. And if he can lift another World Cup for Argentina and secure his legacy, and I can see it live, that would be amazing. Like he's the player of my childhood, basically. Like I grew up watching his career. He's my idol. And so I want him to be there. And not only because he's my idol, because I think that he can still give a lot to this national team, obviously.
Yeah, he's not going to have to carry this time, or supposedly carry the Argentinian national team, even though I thought he was still amazing at the last World Cup and fully deserved it. Yeah, I just don't think he's going to have that same impact as we saw at the last World Cup. I just think he's obviously getting older up in age. He's obviously catching these little bit of injuries. So I'm like, okay, are we going to see the same Messi? But when you're going up against like a 8-man defensive wall, you're going to see at the World Cup against certain national teams, you're going to need a Messi there. He's still the elite passing. Yeah, he doesn't have the speed, but it's just his chance creation, his passing is always going to be the best of all time. So yeah, Messi's going to have an important part, but I feel like Argentina they're just a glue right now. And there's nothing that is stopping this glue heading into our World Cup. So let's see, people. It's going to be fascinating to see how Argentina approach it. They're going to have a huge support, of course, in the United States. Imagine if Argentina play in Mexico. That would be awesome to see as well. So let's move on then. We have other teams to talk about. Enough of the humiliation on Brazil. Rank. Who is truly the worst team in CONMEBOL? Is it Chile or is it Peru? Because both teams are on 10 points. Both are now 5 points behind Venezuela for the last spot. At least Peru, they got a victory over Bolivia in this window, and Chile got 1 point against Ecuador, and they scored a grand total of 0 goals. So who is truly the worst team for you?
I think that the worst team is Peru, just based on the head-to-head. We saw that Chile were able to get the better of Peru in that game, and that slowly with these kind of youngsters that Gareca has been trying out, maybe I'm seeing a bit of something in that game against Ecuador. I feel like Chile actually had a bit of life in them, especially in the first half. They were creating some decent chances, and they could have probably scored against this very, very good Ecuadorian defense. So I think that Chile is slightly the better team, but they are both horrible. And I think that with this window, they both secured their elimination from the World Cup. And now the playoff slot is going to come down to either Venezuela or Bolivia for sure.
What I don't understand about Chile is they started both games really well in the first half. And it's like Gareca must have told them at halftime, yeah, guys, take your foot off the gas. Let's not play anymore. Because watching the Ecuador game, I'm like, Chile, you're actually on the front foot. Ecuador did nothing in that first half. And then the second half, I'm like, why don't you push forward? Even Vidal was getting pissed off. He was trying to be the coach. He said, Gareca, maybe you should sit down. I'll be the manager here. I just don't understand from Gareca's perspective, but Osorio was really good in the game, at least in the first half. Second half, he was a bit quiet. I just think it's tactically that Gareca didn't want to push for a win in either game, and they got caught out against Paraguay, not so much against Ecuador, even though Eno Valencia did score in the final minute, but he was off by basically a pubic hair. They need a better image of that line because I didn't look offside. For Peru, I'm actually a little bit positive. I think Chile are the worst team. Right now, I think Peru are slightly better. And I mean, both are garbage. Let's be real here. Both are not good enough to even qualify for this World Cup. But I was actually impressed with what I saw from Peru, especially from a certain Paulo Guerrero. I thought I would never say those words at 41 years old, but he was quite decent in both games. He was really good against Bolivia, but I mean, Bolivia were just terrible in that matchup. The Venezuela game, he was good. He was effective, linking up play. I like Carrillo in the 10 role. I thought he was pretty good against Bolivia, not so much against Venezuela. They were struggling. And Advincula was a beast, I thought, against Venezuela. I thought he was really effective going forward. He almost scored another trademark of his, cutting onto his left foot and scoring. He almost scored there in that situation. So I think there's more positive signs for Peru. But, man, they're going to have such a hard reset going on here. They just need some young players. It looks like this Oscar Ibanez did well with tactically getting this team up more, higher up the field, pressing higher up the field. It worked out, even though the second half against Bolivia, it wasn't the best. So, yeah, I would slightly give it to Peru, but, yeah, rank both of these teams are not qualifying to the World Cup, and neither should because they're not good enough. And both teams maybe need a reality check and realizing, yeah, we're not good enough. We should not be qualifying to this World Cup. So, Peru, who's their next game? I think Peru's next game is Colombia away. Yeah, they're taking an L there. And Chile are hosting Argentina. They're both taking an L there. So, adios, muchachos. That's all I have to say. But spirited effort from Peru yesterday against Venezuela because they could have easily gotten a point in that game. And for Chile, I think it was a missed opportunity because Ecuador were not good. Let's get then to the 7th spot. I don't know who's going to take the spot rank because right now it's 1 point between Venezuela and Bolivia. Venezuela finally picking up a victory against Peru at home. First victory in qualifiers since 2023, October or November against Chile. Such a long time ago. So much has happened in the world. So much has happened in football that I want to believe that Vinotinto are going to do this. And I don't think they still played amazing against Peru at home. But I thought at times they were still struggling defensively all over the field. The game against Ecuador, I mean, Vinotinto were horrible. Horrible defensively. Even going forward, yeah, they got a goal, but that was like the last 5 minutes and it was a set piece and it was a bicycle kick goal. I'm not confident in Venezuela. I think Bolivia had a massive opportunity yesterday and they fluffed their lines against Uruguay. Rank, how many shots do they have? Like 30-something shots.
I saw 32 shots, 7 on target.
How do you have 32 shots and not score a goal? I'm being genuine. And I watched the game. Uruguay were physically done after 60 minutes. They could not run. So I think Bolivia missed a massive opportunity. And if people don't know, the next game, when it is in June, it is Venezuela hosting Bolivia. Is that game going to be the final nail in the coffin of Bolivia's opportunity to qualify to the World Cup rank?
I think it is. I think it is Vinotinto's time because what happened yesterday was the revival of Mano Tengo Fe. Because first, with Bolivia dropping points, I mean, just the amount of chances that they wasted. Because Uruguay were not trying to win that game. You saw the lineup for Bielsa. You saw how they played. They didn't have a shot on target. We know that Uruguay was trying to just get a point and get something positive after the defeat against Argentina. And, well, they got it. And it was mainly because of Bolivia's lack of finishing. I thought that Ramiro Vaca was fantastic. It's incredible because Bolivia go to the altitude and Ramiro Vaca turns into prime hazard. But it's incredible the way that he was playing with the through balls, with the long passes, with the shots from distance as well. I thought that Ramiro Vaca was fantastic. He even had a shot hit the post. And then that final chance in the 88th minute that Algarañaz missed with the open net in front of him and that he wasn't able to tap in. I think that Bolivia are going to remember that chance as the one that denied them the chance to get into the Intercontinental playoff because the same narratives that we had about Venezuela, we can also speak about Bolivia. When was the last time that Bolivia were realistically in a position where they could maybe make the World Cup? And when are we going to see it again? So the fact that they wasted that opportunity against Uruguay, not scoring those chances, was just so sad for Bolivia. And you could see the reactions from the fans after the game, just throwing the seats into this pitch and booing the team. It was a disaster, because we know that Bolivia, they have to win their games at home if they want to have any chance, and so dropping points is disastrous for them. Now, potentially, what they need to do is repeat what they did against Chile. They need to win on the road, and we know how incredibly difficult that is. And then later on the day, we saw Venezuela pick up that massive win against Peru, which I don't think they deserved. I don't even think there was a penalty. Do you think there was a penalty on El Brujo Martinez?
No, it didn't look like anything.
I feel like they were both grabbing him and Zambrano.
Yeah. So I think it was like a late kick on Martinez. That's why they gave the penalty, but it looked pretty soft.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a penalty. And then after that, after Rondon scores the penalty, Peru actually equalized, and it's ruled out for a handball from Reina. So it was extremely unlucky for Peru not to get anything in that game. And listen, the performance for Venezuela was not good, but I don't think any of the fans care at this point how they win. What matters is that they actually got a win.
Do you think the players were super nervous for like the last 30 minutes of that game, knowing how big it was to get the victory?
Oh, they were so nervous after that.
Super nervous.
You saw in the way that they celebrated after the final whistle how much it meant to them, not only putting themselves in this position, but getting any type of resemblance, like getting 3 points in a game, what it meant to absolutely everyone in that pitch, the energy that came out. It's sad because after the performances that they had in 2023 against Brazil and against Chile, I was hopeful that Venezuela were going to qualify to the World Cup, not only in the sense of qualifying, that they were going to do it in a good way, that they were actually playing some fantastic football against Brazil. That goal that Velo scored against Brazil, like the combination play and then the bicycle kick, and then the way that they destroyed Chile. Venezuela used to be so good. Nowadays, we're seeing nothing out of that. The defense is not solid, and the midfield is not working like before. The attack doesn't look as threatening as it once did. And so what matters for Venezuela right now is that they got the win and they put themselves in a great position, because as long as they can win that home game against Bolivia, that is the final. The final of the CONMEBOL qualifiers is that Venezuela-Bolivia game. And I think that historically, Venezuela gets the better of Bolivia at home. Like every team gets the better of Bolivia at home. So I think that Venezuela have put themselves in a great position. And as long as the nerves don't get to them and they manage to win that game, they're going to be in the Intercontinental playoffs, and they'll get to gamble their way into the World Cup, the first ever World Cup.
Do you feel confident for Venezuela then when they go to the Intercontinental playoff? Because most of their good performances have been in Maturin. That's kind of the issue here for Vinotinto. And they got the quality like Sotedinho, Savarino, Yangel Herrera, Aramburu. But since the Copa America, it's been so flat, and they just look tactically inept.
Yes, I think that Batista is getting quite lucky recently with the ways that things have played out for him. Because we used to praise him a lot by the way that he set up his team and how Venezuela didn't look as defensively naive as they once did. But it feels like Venezuela are slowly regressing back, and the only reason why they've gotten themselves into this position again is because of the teams at the back lagging behind. It's not really like their own merit that they got themselves into this position once again. But listen, if they can get into the Intercontinental playoffs, I think that whoever they play up against, they're going to give a decent effort. But depending, like if they play someone from Africa, I feel like it would be a bit too complicated with the way that they're playing right now. I wouldn't rule out them winning that game and making it to the World Cup. But as it stands, I'm not convinced with the way that Venezuela have been playing. And getting into the Intercontinental playoffs would be an amazing achievement, but missing out on the World Cup in that fashion would just be so heartbreaking.
That would be devastating.
So I really hope that Venezuela can do it, for not only for them, but for the pride of CONMEBOL. But it will be...
Well, I mean,
at the moment,
first off, there shouldn't be 7 spots even for CONMEBOL at this point. There shouldn't be. Like, these bottom 4 teams are not good enough to be even in contention with the Colombia, Paraguay. They shouldn't be, but it is what it is. That's what happens. Bolivia were hilarious though, because I saw at the end of the game, saw some fans trying to attack their president, the FA president. That was hilarious to me. They're throwing the seats everywhere. Oh, it doesn't look good. Bolivia were so happy. They were destroying who was it, Venezuela at home, beating Colombia, getting the victory away at Chile. Everything was rosy, and now all of a sudden, darkness has returned to Bolivian football, and it's now turning into a tornado. Okay, let's continue with the bad vibes here. Colombia or Uruguay? Whose downfall is more worrying right now?
Oof. What a question. I think that Uruguay's downfall is more worrying because we kind of saw it coming as they progressively got worse as the Copa America went on. And then now in the qualifiers as well, the performances have been so bad. I think that the problem with Colombia right now is not only have they been getting unlucky, but it's mostly a mentality thing. The way that they've been dropping points in the final few minutes against Uruguay, against Brazil, now dropping a 2-0 lead against Paraguay. I think that the problem with Colombia is just mentality. And you saw in that second goal, by the way, what a golazo from Enciso, but you saw in the build-up that basically there was a lot of, like, the ball was bouncing around between players. And I think that we saw that the determination from Paraguay was just on another level. That grit that usually is so characteristic of the CONMEBOL teams was there for Paraguay, and it was lacking for Colombia, that they weren't trying their hardest to get that ball and clear it away. And in the end, it got to the feet of Enciso, and he managed to score that amazing goal. I think that Colombia, at the moment, it seems like the players are not giving it their all, and mentally they are checked out because they've been on this bad streak for a while. And we know that Colombia tend to be like a team where they're going off of form. Like, if they are on a high, they are on a crazy high, and they can
play
beat
with
anybody
emotions
in the world. Yeah, but when they're on a low, they're on a really bad low, and nothing seems to work out for Colombia. So I think that Colombia have the highest chance of turning this around. For Uruguay, it feels like just the players and the manager are not on the same page. And also, even when you have such amazing players on the pitch, they're not really working off each other like they used to. It seems like what Bielsa is setting them out to do is just run forward, run for the ball. And like you were saying, by 60 minutes, they were gassed out. And against Argentina as well, it doesn't have to be because of the altitude. Against Argentina as well, after running so much in the first half, the second half, they had no legs, and that's when Argentina thrived. So I think that Bielsa has kind of lost it in his tactics. He's getting again to that point where I always talk about Bielsa. Amazing tactician. He's super stubborn about his play style. And when he needs to change it up or change up the lineup, he doesn't do it. And right now it's getting to Uruguay. And I think that they're regressing back, and it's getting bad for them, because the only positive that they got this window was that they didn't lose to Bolivia because they did nothing in that game.
Well, it's difficult, though, to sort of react. I mean, you could say the same thing for Paraguay, but they fought back and got a 2-2 draw there. It's just so difficult to play at that altitude rank. I mean, I saw somebody trying to discourage what Ugarte's performance. I'm like, do you know what it's like to run at altitude? Even at 2,000 meters, it's bloody difficult. Imagine 4,000 meters. And all you're just seeing is Bolivians just running past you. They're all just turning into Usain Bolt out there. It's super difficult. But I thought the Uruguay game at home against Argentina was actually alarming. They did nothing, Rank.
Yes.
Nothing. I mean, nothing with the ball. Okay, yeah, high pressing. We're running around here looking like a bunch of drunk alcoholics on a Friday night in somewhere in Barcelona or Madrid. I mean, have some football about you. You got Valverde, De La Cruz, Arciate. Like, you got ballers on your team. Rank, I'll say it again. Luciano Rodriguez, switch allegiance. Don't play for Uruguay. Go play for, I don't know, Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or Panama. Panama could use you, by the way. Sure. Luciano Rodriguez wasn't even on the bench yesterday against Bolivia. Not even the bench?
Nah.
I'm trying to get this guy's name because I don't know some of these guys for Uruguay. I'll be honest here. This guy, Vinas, he plays for Real Oviedo. Oviedo. I mean, this other guy, Aguirre, terrible. Even when he came onto the field against Argentina, terrible. So the subs, the lineup choices from Bielsa made no sense. I get it. He wanted to go for more fresh legs against Bolivia away from home. I can understand that. But not even having Luciano Rodriguez is just so damn... I don't understand why. There has to be a genuine explanation from Bielsa's point of view. But I thought okay, the Bolivia game, it wasn't great. It was a basketball match. By the way, people, if you want to watch the last 10 minutes of the game, just chaotic. It wasn't football. It was purely basketball. But I think that game against Argentina, just attacking wise, I don't think they've scored more than 5. I don't think in 5 goals they've scored since the Copa America rank. 5 goals or something like that. Do you know how bad that is? It's for the attacking talent they have in the midfield. I should be expecting 10 to 15 goals minimum 10 to 15 goals, and it's not looking good for Bielsa. I think if they lose their next 2 games, they'll pull the plug. Uruguay. They cannot go like this heading into next year, and then we'll see what they do. For Colombia, I'm a little bit worried too, Rank. These performances are getting more alarming. But Nestor Lorenzo, his in-game management, guess what he did, Rank, yesterday? He took off Arias, who I thought was actually having a really good game against Paraguay. He brought in Yerry Mina to switch to a back 5? Do what? To do what? Guess what, Rank? A minute later, they concede.
Yep.
Minute later, they concede to Enciso Golazo. Obviously, James Rodriguez comes off the field. Campas, I think he plays his football for Rosario in Argentina. I haven't seen this guy much, so I can't criticize him. I think it's a mentality thing for Colombia, but I did say this heading into this break. This defense is worrying me. They cannot keep a clean sheet. They can't concede more than they can't keep teams less than 1 goal now. They're conceding 2 goals, 3 goals. Here, you get a golazo, you get a golazo.
I mean, did you see what Vargas was doing for the first goal? Where was Vargas going in that first goal?
He's terrible. Do you criticize him for the Vinny goal or deflection tax?
No, deflection tax.
Okay, deflection tax. Okay. I mean, he's not the greatest of goalkeepers. I think there's a Colombian goalkeeper. I think it was Empoli or something. If my memory serves me right, I think I've seen him twice. Quality goalkeeper. Try him over this Vargas guy, because Vargas is clearly not working out at the moment. But this defense, like Munoz and Mojica, but there's one player ranked that's not playing well since the Copa America, and he's a player that you and me really like, Richard Rios. Do we want to have that conversation?
I'm so mad about it. He's like the only narrative I had about Colombia, and he's thinking the bed right now.
To be fair, though, Lucho had a pretty good 2 games, I would say. Lucho was a positive. Yeah. Yon Duran scoring, so we don't have to see Cordoba anymore in our life, which is a great thing because the guy is awful. You see that you needed a Yon Duran versus Brazil. But I think that the Colombia, they got to get some positive results. What if they don't get a win in the next window, Rank? Do you think they're going to sack Lorenzo then?
It depends on how the losses are, but right now it's looking really bad, because I agree with you in the in-game management. Why did it take him in the game against Brazil until the 87th minute to make any substitutions? You saw that James had no legs. James couldn't run. Why are you waiting so long to take him off? And yes, he did so eventually against Paraguay, but like you were saying, for what? Because the players that you're bringing off the bench are even worse, and the substitutions don't even make sense. We saw, when was it that he actually played Yerry Mina as a striker? At some point, it was like, was it during the Copa America that Yerry Mina?
Something like, I think it was the Copa America. Yeah.
No, that's when Lorenzo kind of lost me. So he is slowly losing it, and if the performances keep being like this, they're lucky that they play at home against Peru. So like that's a guaranteed win. Yeah. But after that, they have to visit Argentina. How Colombia do in that game away to Argentina?
With that defense,
it's gonna say a lot. Like I think that if you don't lose that game badly, it's gonna be a bit of a positive. But even then, the performances have to be better. Like you were saying, Lucho Diaz showing up for the national team, fantastic. John Duran, you finally have a striker. But the rest of the team, the midfield that we used to praise, the defense that we used to praise, is not there anymore. Where's the Munoz? Munoz used to be so good. Munoz used to be so good right now.
But Munoz is pretty good. But Munoz is pretty good for Palace. That's why I'm shocked by his performances for Colombia. So, yeah, both teams are going really badly at the moment. I don't know how they turn it around. I'm really worried for Uruguay, because if Darwin is okay. I don't want to speak about Darwin. I think the less said, the better, because wow. Okay, then the final question, Rank. Right now, who will progress further at the World Cup? Ecuador or Paraguay?
What a question.
Before you say that, I have 2 stats for you. Paraguay has gone 8 straight games without losing a game. Second best streak for them in their entire history. Only behind 9 games in 96-97. Paraguay is the first visiting team to come back from 2 goals down in South American qualifiers since Peru in 2017.
Wow. That is a fantastic stat. And I think that if Paraguay continue on the high that they are currently on under Gustavo Alfaro, they are a team that nobody wants to play at the World Cup.
No, they don't.
The problem for Paraguay, and I was talking a bit about it before, was I don't see a way in which they can dominate opponents. I think that the Paraguay way is going to be sit back, try and get a goal through a set piece, or maybe go on the counter-attack. And they have amazing players for that, and I think that it's going to work. The problem is how sustainable is that going to be at the World Cup when you're facing much better levels of opposition? Like, what's going to happen? I don't want to say like Germany or France. When is going to happen when Paraguay have to play somebody like Japan? Say, like, can Paraguay keep up with that type of intensity and just a team that links up the ball really, really well? We'll have to see. Maybe I could see Paraguay beating Japan, honestly, on their day. But everything about international football is so close right now that I think that if Paraguay were to play someone like France, I could see that game going to penalties. Because honestly, with the way that Paraguay are setting up defensively right now and the results that they're getting, even now, like you were saying, against Bolivia and against Colombia, getting back from behind after being 2 goals down, it's amazing. Just the mentality that Alfaro has set on these players and the way that they're playing. Finally, that individual quality that we were seeing before that didn't always show up for the national team and that they couldn't keep a clean sheet and they couldn't score goals. Now they can do both things. Paraguay are on a crazy high right now. The thing is that Ecuador has been more consistent for a longer period of time, but as well, the attack for Ecuador is always a question mark. Is Ener Valencia going to show up or not? And if he doesn't, who's going to show up for them? Because you're not going to trust in Gonzalo Plata or Kevin Rodriguez or anybody else. We don't know where Kendry Baez went. So
to the strip club.
Yeah, very much. The defense for Ecuador is a positive. So I think that they can keep a clean sheet against anybody. But if you were to ask me right now, I think that there's a chance that both either have a round of 16 exit at most. Like, quarterfinals feels like a fever dream for both teams, in my opinion.
Does it though? Honestly, at this point, Rank, if the World Cup started in 3 months' time,
Paraguay can make a quarterfinal.
I think Paraguay would make the quarterfinals. With the way these guys are playing, even yesterday, they weren't so defensive against Colombia. They took the game to Colombia.
Yeah,
they had chance after chance. If Oliver had his shooting boots on, Paraguay could have won that game. That's how good they were. And being 2-0 down after, was it 14 minutes, 12 minutes into the game?
Yeah, wow.
Paraguay are just showing so many different elements to their game. And it just comes down to the Professor Alvaro. What a genius. I mean, this guy is what he has brought to Paraguay. The depths of hell from the worst Copa America, losing to a Costa Rican team that you should never lose to. And now you're unbeaten in 8 straight games. You're beating Argentina with Golazo. You're beating Brazil. You're coming back from behind to get points away to Colombia and Bolivia. I think Alvaro needs to take massive credit. And also, Rank, they did this without Gustavo Gomez in defense, who was a key piece of their entire team. I'm really liking this Paraguayan team. The only thing is, I hope they can maintain this for the next year. That's going to be the big issue. Can they maintain this sort of play? But Alvaro did the same thing with Ecuador. They were very good. A little bit at the end, it was not the most sustainable from Alvaro and Ecuador. I just hope this can maintain for Paraguay, because if they keep these performances up, I'm telling you, nobody wants to play this team. Nobody. England, Spain, Portugal, Germany, they might look at Paraguay's lineup and say, Alderete. Who's this? Who's this? Avalos at striker? Who's this? Alvaro says, watch this. He'll show you how to play football. So I think Paraguay yesterday just confirmed to me. And also in Ciso, que golazo, man. What a goal. Are you kidding? Nobody, you could put Lunin, Courtois, and Oliver Kahn in goal. All 3 of them on the line, they're not saving that. That is the most unstoppable goal I've seen for a while. Just the pinpoint accuracy to put it the top right corner was delicious. For Ecuador, I thought they played really well against Venezuela. I was like, wow, good performance from Ecuador. Ball movement was great. They're creating chances. Then they go into Santiago, and that was probably the worst half, especially the first half I've seen from Ecuador these entire qualifiers. Nothing with the ball. It feels like when they go up against a team that are high pressing, and they're going to face that a lot at the World Cup, they don't know how to build from the back. They either just lump it long to Eno Valencia, or they try and play it down the wings with either Ordóñez or Estupiñán, of course, because he's very comfortable on the ball. So that's something that I think Becasese needs to work on this team, is building out from the back and how to beat a press. Once they can do that, I think Ecuador are good. And what do you do with the left wing position? I think that position is still for Alaminda, because I don't want to talk about it, but they brought on a kid, 17 years old, called Guagua. And guys, if you don't know, he has played zero professional minutes. This was his first ever professional start. I don't know why he was starting. I'm not going to get into conspiracy. Oh my! I looked at Flash Score. He played at the Copa Libertadores U20, and he started started 2 games. One of those games he got hooked off at halftime. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, Yon Yoboa, they didn't even have him in the lineup. Same with Kevin Rodriguez. Both players after the game came out and said they weren't injured. What? You're not playing Yon Yoboa in this game, or Kevin Rodriguez? Doesn't make any sense to me. So Becasese, don't get influenced by the outside. That's all I'm going to say about that situation, because that Guagua kid, he should have never been on that. He looked like a polar bear in Paraguay. Should have never been out there. It was so... I felt bad because it's not his fault. I don't know what the managers are thinking. So Ecuador just got to fix that left wing position. And if Enter the GOAT has scored their last 3 goals. He should have... Rank, do you think he was offside yesterday, by the way?
No.
I don't think he was offside. I don't think he was offside.
I saw the replay of VAR and how they were drawing the line, and I was like, nah. Where are they pointing? Like, I know that Ener is a big guy, but he's not that big to be pointing the point like that far away from his shoulder. I don't think he was offside.
So, yeah, if Ecuador, they're obviously going to qualify to the World Cup, and we'll talk about that when they do qualify. The only way they're going to make it far is if they do a Paraguay Copa America 2011. Get every game to penalties and win it. That's the only way. Because I just don't think they have...
Can you trust Ecuador on penalties then? Like, I know Galindez is a good goalkeeper, but...
Yeah, Galindez is a good goalkeeper. So I just look at the attack. That needs surgery. I think the midfield is sorted out, though. Vite, this guy's a baller. Get him straight to Europe. Get away from Vancouver. Get away from the high taxes, the high rents in Vancouver. Go to Europe, buddy. You are a baller. And obviously, Moses Caicedo. So they have one piece just missing. It's just about who will take that left wing position. Is it going to be Alaminda's position? We'll find out. But I think it was a positive window for Ecuador, although the game against Chile was terrible from them. They were not at the races. That's why I'm saying Paraguay are the team right now, people. They are the most informed team in CONMEBOL, alongside, obviously, Argentina. You don't want to play them. I think Paraguay, they just keep on building. I'm intrigued to see what friendlies they can get in October-November window. That will tell me a lot about how Paraguay want to set up at the World Cup. Remember, people, to follow Rank. His link to his channel will be in the description down below. And, of course, remember to follow me on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world. Till next time. Adios.